And if there's anybody that I know of, player, coach, teacher, student, or anybody that I've ever talked to about hitting, he knows more about my principles that I believe in hitting than anyone I've ever been with.
Hi, this is Marini from Ride the Wave Media. I'm here with Steve Ferroli, who was named by Ted Williams as the #1 teacher of his world-famous Science of Hitting theory. Do you think that you are the game's leading authority on how to hit a baseball?
Well, if I am, I'm not proud of it because everything in my life played a second fiddle to hitting a baseball, and I'm not really sure that that is the best use of my time. You know, a big monkey with a stick, you know, hitting rocks. But if we're talking the Ted Williams theory, which is what you're seeing on TV today, slightly up, hips ahead of hands, unbroken distance of contact, I think I'm your guy. The reason I say that is Ted named me his successor in 1994. There are clips of that. He said it in a videotape we worked on together. He said it in the second book that I wrote, Hit Your Potential. If we're using that system, I'm your guy. I would have a hard time believing that there was someone else that understood it at the level I understand it. Can you prove that? No, you can't prove it. Do I care if we prove it? I don't care if we prove it. But I do think that I can teach that theory better than anyone alive. And a couple other things I want to say about that. I also was a phys ed major, so I understood the principles of how the body works and the physics of how to execute physical skills. And this is something Ted didn't understand so much. And also, I was a right-handed hitter. So you had this fanatical kid cross-referencing the greatest hitter of all time from the left side of the plate with a right-handed approach and saying, what about this, what about that, what about the other thing? And then there's my own, personal course on learning how to hit, evolving from a not-so-good hitter to a pretty good hitter. And all those things add up to understanding that theory. And I've been at this since 1976, thinking about that theory and how to execute it. And the final thing about it is that when Ted talked about me, one of the things that no one really understands is it's not just that I had written 2 books supporting his theory and had read his book 75 times when he met me, but also that I had expounded upon it. That, if you read The Science of Hitting, when you pick me up, you get another 50%, talking about different parts of his theory and strengthening them. Best example, I talked about a thing called the stretch position, which is the coupling of the lower and upper body. If you're not in the stretch position, you'll never reach your potential as a hitter. That's not in the Science of Hitting. Ted kind of blew that one. He did it great as a hitter, but he didn't get it right himself in the Science of Hitting. Another way of saying all this would be if God himself come down from heaven and said, I need the best guy in the world to teach my kid how to hit, I'd have him out of those sandals looking good at the plate before anybody else stop peeing their pants from behind the bushes. Now, I don't say that to be arrogant or to be cocky. I say it as a matter of fact. In fact, confidence is earned, and I've earned it. And that's how I feel about that.
What do you think is wrong with hitting in Major League Baseball today?
What's funny about that is, let's talk about what's good about it. It is an exciting time. I watched the Yak. I'm listening to the Yak on TV. Like, man, where's all this power coming? And I love the Yak. I grew up with the Yak. I love them. Man, where's all this power coming from? I feel like saying, Yak, it took them 30 years, but they finally figured out the contact point. They finally figured out that the ball was hit a certain way and not another way, and now the ball's flying out of the ballpark. So it's really interesting. But the problem, in answer to your question, is they're starting to swing a little bit, but they're out of style. They don't understand timing, and they can't, for God's sakes, hit with 2 strikes. Where's Pete Rose? Get Pete Rose. I'm with Pete Rose 100%. They can't hit with 2 strikes. So what am I talking about with that? Let's say JBJ, Jackie Bradley Jr. Here's a guy that goes from 2 years ago being talked in the same sentence as Joe DiMaggio, one of the greatest players in the history of this game. He goes from can he catch the streak, to are we going to get rid of him? Now, here's a guy that is as talented as anybody in the game, but talent can't correct itself. When you have talent and it goes off the track, it doesn't know what to do. He's built on talent. His approach is built on talent. But when a hitter is made and not born, it's a quote old Roger Hornsby, great hitters aren't born, they're made out of practice, fault correction, and confidence. When you have a hitter built like that, he can fix himself. I contacted the Red Sox, I contacted his agent, and I said, I'll fix this kid before I finish a large cup of coffee. And I tell you, I'll throw this out to him. We can't get into it here, but he can leave his bat in the dugout. It's not a batting problem. He doesn't understand timing. He has a timing problem. He hasn't been taught properly. He doesn't know how to fix it. He doesn't know how to feel it. And he's got as much talent as anybody. So there's an example of not understanding timing. Ted talked about timing on one level. I talk about it on 3 different levels. And there's another place where I expounded on his theory, which is really important. And then let's jump over to style. Who don't like Mookie Betts? Love him. Do the dance, baby. All the kids are doing the dance at my camp, right? They're doing the dance. I love him. I love the guy. He transfers from the mid-infield to go in the outfield. That's a nightmare in itself. He does great out there. Won an MVP, didn't he, a year ago?
Yeah.
Here's a guy that put the ball out of the ballpark, right? Talented. Here's what I think is Ted's successor. Out of style. Huh? What are you talking about? This guy's a great player. Here's what I'm saying to you. Most of the great hitters hit the ball to the middle of the field. They didn't pull the ball. Ted's an old duck, an odd duck for that. Speaker, Averill, Cobb, Bill Terry, Roger Hornsby. They hit to the middle of the field. They didn't pull the ball. It's amazing that Ted Williams hit 400 pulling the ball with a 6.5 strike zone in average running speed. It's amazing he's the last one to do it. If I was Mookie Betts, I would make some changes. Now, granted, you have to understand how to do that. I'd hit the ball to the middle of the field, and I'd chase old Ted for the 400 mark. Oh, don't get up off your floor now. Get up, if you're watching this. How can this guy say this? I'll tell you how I can say it. Because if one man can do it, another man can do it. They used to talk about the 4-minute mile. No one can do it. Everyone's like a cup of coffee today.
Yeah.
What the problem is that hitting hasn't worked hard enough. He'd have to better his 2-strike approach, and he'd have to change his style a little bit. And in my opinion, if Mookie Betts hit the ball to the middle of the field, he would be on base more. He would still hit home runs. And they'd pitch him easier than they're pitching him today because they'd say, well, he's going to hit the middle of the field. He's probably not going to smoke me. A lot of room in the middle of the field. So pitching would come at him a little bit more than what they're doing now. And that's just my opinion on Mookie Betts. Now, that's kind of an interesting thing to say. Find someone else that would talk like that. But that's how I feel about that boy. Now, let's go on to 2-strike hitting. None of them can hit with 2 strikes. And I hear Pete Rose, pissing and moaning about it, and I'm with him 100%. With 2 strikes, you have got to concede to the hitter, to the pitcher. You got to concede to him. He's got you. He put your back to the wall. And I think every hitter should be as good with his batting average with 2 strikes as he is before it. So what I'm saying is if J.D. Martinez is a 300 hitter before 2 strikes, up to strike 2, when he's got 2 strikes, he's also a 300 hitter. Now you'd say, how are you going to do that, coach? Well, I'll tell you why. We'll go to golf. These guys are all hitting like they're batting off the tee. They're driving down the fairway. They got the wood, and they're trying to smoke the thing through the hole at bat. That's not what the great hitters did. When a guy gets in the sand trap, he's got like this different club with a different, shorter swing to get out of it. That's what 2-strike hitting is, so to speak. You got to shorten up. You got to concede to the pitcher. You got to think about hitting to the middle of the field. And once a guy does that, now before 2 strikes, he'll be a better hitter because he's not worried about getting 2 strikes on him. And then his whole average will come up. More guys on base. More guys, more ball games being won. Pitcher throwing more pitches. 2-strike stroke, you're going to have more decision time. I'd estimate almost a third more decision time in most cases to see that ball and decide ball or strike. What am I going to do with it? And that's huge. Now, ball 4, you walk. tougher at bats, make the pitcher pitch the ball a little bit more. Two-strike hitting is crucial. So if we get guys in style, we get them understand timing, and we get good two-strike hitting, now what we have is the whole lineup approaching the pitching the way it should. Right now, the pitching approaches hitting intelligently. They got mid-relievers, relievers, one guy to come in and throw to a lefty, correct. They got more categories than they have uniforms to come in and deal with hitting. But the hitter isn't putting that out. What I'm saying is you got everybody's trying to play center. If this was football, everybody's trying to be the center. Well, Larry Bird would probably be a pretty good point guard. He could probably go out there and play point guard for a while, but he's not. He's a power forward. If you follow what I'm saying, the same thing's true in hitting. You have a certain position to play in the lineup that has to do with your physical makeup, and if you're not obeying those rules, you're really wasting your ability to help your team and to help yourself. So that's what I think is wrong with hitting today, if you can follow all that.
So Steve, why have we not heard from you until now? Your first book was written in 1987.
Well, that's a great question, and I can tell you how I was described by a college player once. A college player described me as Yoda. He said, this guy is out in the woods. He does not care whether you find him or not, but when you find him, he'll close his eyes and he'll pull that spaceship right out of the pond for you, the swamp or whatever it was. And while I appreciate the compliment of it, I also accept the criticism. But here's why: baseball didn't want me or Ted. We were ahead of the game, ahead of it. And back in those years, when you're talking mid 80s for 15, 20 years, you have swinging down on the ball, hitting the ball on the ground, out on your front foot. Ted Williams once said to me, he said, Steve, I couldn't sell a case of books to the Boston Red Sox. And I never forgot that because, think of that. How is that possible that the greatest hitter of all time? And let's remember this, too. We're talking about the number one forefather of hitting. No one explained hitting better than Ted Williams. He came out and said, this is how it's done in the science of hitting. And that's huge. So to have him then say, I can't, the Red Sox don't want to hear this, and so they don't want to hear me either. I remember being down in Winter Haven watching him flocked signing autographs. He had me down there as a guest one time. And he was signing autographs, and all these people around, they want his autograph, but the players on the field really didn't want his opinion. And that's true. They really didn't. Not as much. I mean, some might talk to him about this or that, the other thing, but they really didn't want to hear what he had to say. So knowing that, I went to a much more important thing, and that's children's baseball. I started my own boys' baseball camp, and I started the tedwilliamsleague, which is the center of my heart. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as we go along. But that's in a nutshell where I've been. Now, why am I raising my hand now? Why am I shooting up a flare from the wood or the jungle saying, hey, Yoda, I'm down here. This is Yoda. I'm down here. I know what I'm talking about. Because who's the big guy there? He's going to get a good knock. Johnny Gomes. Johnny Gomes. I'm listening to him on the radio or whatever on TV because I don't watch it all that much, but now and then I'll watch it because I'm interested in, what's happening, who's looking better or whatever. And Johnny Gomes is talking. And I remember Johnny Gomes about 10 years ago, and he's very deliberate with his hands through the zone. And I said, oh boy, that's boom, that was our signal made. They're starting to get on the contact point. And I saw a shot of Josh Donaldson in some sort of, some picture somewhere. And he's all the way over here with his hands in the unbroken wrist position before the follow through. And I listened to him talking. Guys were sending me, this is Josh Donaldson talking about hitting. Sounded like me 30 years ago. I got a big kick out of that. So what I'm saying to you is that hitting is ready for what Ted was saying, and it's ready for what I've expounded on in the Ted Williams theory. And that's why I'm coming forward today. It wasn't so much that I didn't have the information, it's that they didn't want to hear the information. And I think now baseball is ready to hear it, and it's an exciting time.
All right, Steve, I'll leave you with this. What would you like to see happen in baseball?
Well, I'll tell you, everything else is just a warm-up to this question. The most important level of baseball is amateur baseball, and I say that, kids baseball, because there's more kids playing baseball than there are pro teams or college teams. There's 5 million kids or 6 million kids in 90 countries, and here's what I'm saying to you: it's all set up wrong. It is scaled incorrectly. And I'll say this to you real quick. It makes no sense that a boy with a shorter arm and a shorter bat should bat up the same plate as Xander Bogaerts does at Fenway Park tonight. But he does all over the world, and this causes problems. The pitcher's overthrowing the ball. The kid can't reach the ball. The pitcher's throwing the ball too hard. The batter backs off the plate. The umpire can't control the ball because he's throwing too hard, and speed dissipates accuracy. So now the umpire opens the zone in kids baseball. So it just goes on and on and on. That's just one part of it that I don't like, and it tears the game apart. Now, where did this come from? In the late 40s, a guy named Carl Stotz took a nephew and a couple of friends, went out in the backyard and tried to scale down kids' baseball. He took one summer. He goes to Pennsylvania State University, goes to their sports recreation department, says, hey, look it, this is in the late 40s now. And there's no other kids, anything, no football, no basketball, nothing. And he goes, hey, I'm thinking of starting kids baseball. And they look at what he's doing. They say, don't do it. Don't go ahead. Some of your dimensions are wrong. And I love this one. We question a parent's ability to coach his or other children. That's my favorite. Anyway, my point is that Penn State should win a retroactive award for their advice to Carl Stotz because they were right. Well, the story goes, Carl goes ahead with it anyway, and kids baseball gets going and snowballs, and we're still paying for those prices today. We're still paying for those incorrect dimensions today. It was not scaled down properly, and 70%, the last time I checked, of all kids quit at 13 years old. It's a dying game. So what I'd like to see happen is a better connection between Major League Baseball and youth baseball, because I think youth baseball needs the help. And the Ted Williams League, which took the field back in 1997, we've got every answer to the problem. We got it nailed, but we don't have the players because they're all off doing other things, and it's really tricky. It really is tricky. So my business plan would be, if there's a player, I know, like, for example, I've heard that J.D. Martinez works with another batting instructor, an independent batting instructor. If there's a player or a team that is looking for what you might sense is available in this video, this interview that we're doing, perhaps it's time for me to take a job at the higher levels of baseball, and then I can take that money and try to support the part of the game that I love the most, which is children's baseball, and specifically with the Ted Williams League. I'll give you a stat. Ted Williams League was on the field for 17 seasons between the ages of 8 and 14. Not one case of little league elbow, which is a micro tear in the elbow, because we got the right ball, we got the right distance, we got the right width plate, we've got it, the dimensions of it, the geometric and algebraic relationship between the equipment and the boy's body is correct. And that's safer on arms. We decreased hit batters by 48%. 48%. So if you're playing in another league, you get hit 100 times in your career. In the Ted Williams League, you'd only get hit 50. That's a little extreme, but that is 48%, 50% of the time. So that's what I would like to see happen. In my small little business plan would be, if an owner is watching this or a player, I'm pretty easy to contact. I'm sure this interview is going to have a bunch of links in it where you can get in touch with me if you want. And I'm kind of looking for something more. I think I've spent a whole life with dealing with children. I'm happy to do it. I'll never get away from it entirely. But I'm ready for something more, because baseball is. And I'd like to be able to earn some money at the higher levels of the game and support the Ted Williams League and children's baseball in general.
All right. Thank you, Steve, for taking time out of your day to invite us to your home. Thank you to our cameraman, Dylan McDonald, also from Ride the Wave Media. And thank you for a great interview.
Well, you guys, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the way you approached it. And it seems to be journalism at its best.
All right. Well, make sure to follow our other accounts, Ride the Wave Media on Instagram, Ride the Wave MLB also on Instagram. and ride the wave.